So throughout this offseason, there is no doubt that there has been a ton of hype surrounding the NFC North. More hype in the NFC North than I think we've seen in a very long time, and I think there's lots of reasons for that being the case. It's not really, unwarranted. I think that Caleb Williams going to Chicago, it seems like he has a chance to be a legit quarterback, drafted number 1 overall. I think the reason for the Bears' excitement and hope is warranted, but we've seen in years past that there was a lot of excitement and hope around Trubisky, around Justin Fields, and things did not, pan out. Then you look at Minnesota, and Minnesota, I think, is definitely the weak link of the NFC North. If I had to pick the team to finish in last place, I'll go with the Minnesota Vikings, losing Kirk Cousins. They do have J.J. McCarthy, and that's the thing with both Chicago and Minnesota, is that their success is going to come down to if they hit on their quarterbacks in round 1. And the thing with this point of the season, after the draft, sitting in the middle of, June, July, before the season kicks off, when every fan base is looking at every reason for why their team's going to be successful, and I fully get it. I definitely do that too. I look at the reasons for hope. You try to have a balanced approach and also look at, okay, what could potentially go wrong, but there's no doubt that the optimism really overtakes anything else. And one of the reasons is because there's nothing coming out that really, makes you change your mind about the hope you may have. And of course, once the season starts, once we get through week 3, 4, 5, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, either Chicago, did they make the wrong decision with Caleb Williams? Those decisions could discussions could occur if Caleb Williams starts out playing really poor. I think it's way too soon to judge a quarterback, especially a rookie, early in the season. But there's no doubt it's going to happen. Just like with Jordan Love last year, starting a few weeks in, they get on a losing streak. All of a sudden, there's a ton of doubters when it comes to Jordan Love, and you understand it because when a guy has a bad stretch of games, part of you goes, oh gosh, is this who he's going to be? Or is he going to get back on track? And that's why I think, especially for young quarterbacks, you have to give them time to develop. But the main point I'm making here is right now in the middle of the summer, there's no games being played. So, of course, there's nothing that's going to come out that's going to convince people that their team isn't going to be good. And once the season starts, we're probably going to start seeing more and more of that. And so with both of those rookie quarterbacks going to Chicago and Minnesota, there, of course, is a lot of hope there. And then I think in the two other teams, the Lions and Packers, there's a lot more, I think, solid reasons for them being really good teams next year, just because we've seen how good Jared Goff is. We saw Jared Goff take the Lions to the NFC Championship, so we already know that they have a very solid team, and there's no really uncertainty there at the quarterback position. We've seen how good he can be, how good Jared Goff is, and he got that massive contract. And then with Jordan Love, we saw how good Jordan Love was down the stretch, and of course, I've seen some people, ask the question, could that have been a fluke where he went off the final 8-9 games of the season and maybe he comes back down to earth next season? It's technically a possibility, even though you guys know my thoughts on this. I really do think that's how good Jordan Love is. He's just too special of an athlete and a player, the kind of throws he makes. I'm still on Jordan Love, but you guys already know this. So I think the Packers and Lions have a more, sure foundation just because we've seen what they can be. And it's harder to judge teams when you haven't really seen their quarterback play and how they translate it to the NFL. The thing is, I remember back in 2022, before the 2022 season, that's when Russell Wilson got traded to the AFC West. Devontae Adams got traded to the Raiders. And then, of course, you also have the Chiefs there with Mahomes and the Chargers with Justin Herbert. And before that season, there was so much hype around the AFC West. And I remember I did a podcast with one of my friends, which I think I've only done 4 episodes of that podcast. It hasn't really survived. I guess I could always bring it back. But I remember we were talking about the AFC West back then, and it was really hard to rank those teams and to try to predict who would make the playoffs, things like that, because at that time I was like, man, all these teams feel like they can be playoff teams. And of course, that did not happen. The Broncos were way worse than pretty much anyone thought they would be. It was just, such a bad year, and honestly, I'd say most people did not see that coming. And so often in the NFL, you have one idea about a team, a player, a group of people, on a team before a season, and the season ends, you're like, wow, I did not see that coming. And so I'm saying that just because right now the NFC North looks great. It looks great before Caleb Williams plays any snaps. It looks great before Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy play any snaps. And I think that we could get I think we will see the NFC North be a lot better than in years past, but still, I don't think all of a sudden the NFC North is going to, have all teams being better than 500. And looking at that, the AFC West and the standings to end the year, the Chiefs were 14-3, Mahomes being Mahomes. The Chargers were 10-7, the Raiders were 6-11, the Broncos 5-12. And so I really, before that season, thought all those teams could be over 500. The Raiders stunk it up, as well as the Broncos. And I found this interesting stat when doing some research for this video. Last year, in the AFC North, all 4 teams were over 500. The Ravens were 13-4, the Browns were 11-6, the Steelers were 10-7, the Bengals were 9-8. And I found this article, and it shared that thanks to Cincinnati's win, the AFC North is now the first division in 88 years to put every team over 500. The last time it happened came all the way back in 1935 in the much vaunted NFL West. I believe that was an article by CBS Sports' John Breach back in January. And so the odds of all 4 teams in the NFC North being over 500 are very, very low, considering it has only happened one time since 1935, which was last season with the AFC North. And so while right now there's a lot of positivity around lots of these teams, I think that you never know what's going to happen in a season where injuries happen. You can't really predict injuries necessarily. You can in a sense if a guy's injury prone, but overall it's tough to predict, quarterback injuries, things like that, and we have no idea what's going to happen in the NFC North coming into 2024 and in that sort of area. And so my whole thing is, as I said, I think the hype is warranted for the NFC North because of Caleb Williams coming in. It seems like he should be good, but at the same time, when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, I found this other stat, interesting stat from Adam Schefter. ESPN content producer Paul Himbo calculated the percentage of first-round picks that hit or miss based upon whether that player signed a second contract with the team that drafted them. The data encompasses the 20 drafts spanning 2000 to 2019. Here are the positional hit rates. And at QB, the hit rate is 46%. So even first-round quarterbacks are misses about half the time when it comes to getting those second contracts. So based on those odds, J.J. McCarthy or Caleb Williams is probably going to be a bust. Maybe not, but based on those odds, that's sort of the overall numbers. My dog is currently barking. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Hopefully she will stop so I can finish this video. But I'm curious to see what happens in the NFC North. It's going to be a fun year, no doubt about that. I think that every team has a lot of excitement. When you have rookie quarterbacks, it's fun to watch to see sort of what goes down, what storylines start to take place. But I think that while the hype is warranted, odds are it's not going to be quite as good as we may think because, J.J. McCarthy could play poorly. Caleb Williams could even be the number 1 pick. We've seen that time and time again, number 1 picks not panning out. So it's going to be fun to watch. Those are my thoughts. Feel free to subscribe if you want more Packers content, and I'll see you guys next time.